Kelsey Mitchell. She had the opportunity to speak after the game. She addressed the situation from her perspective, and the way she used that platform became a significant part of the conversation. Her words, the emphasis she placed on certain topics, and the subjects she did not focus on all became part of the larger analysis surrounding the Fever's victory. To understand why the reaction was so strong, it is important to look beyond just the final score and examine how the performance was discussed afterward. Because sometimes the most revealing part of a basketball story is not what happens during the game. It is how everyone explains what happened once the game is over.
I think the good thing about our team is that, we got so many great pieces. I think Soph still to deal with 11 run by herself. And I think you just got to gut check a lot. And I think that once we discipline ourselves to not let teams back in it, I think we give ourselves in a better chance.
Kelsey, this is Cheryl Miller.
Kelsey Mitchell had an extensive opportunity to speak with the media following the Connecticut Sun victory. During that availability, she discussed several different aspects of the team's performance and highlighted the contributions of multiple players who helped secure the win. She spoke about Sophie Cunningham and the impact of her late-game scoring burst. She recognized the importance of Monique Billings and the role that other supporting players played throughout the night. She talked about the team's progress, the significance of the victory, and the collective effort that allowed Indiana to finish the game successfully. Mitchell had plenty of time and space to reflect on the performance. But one detail immediately stood out to many observers. Caitlin Clark's name was never mentioned. Not once. That specific absence became part of the larger discussion surrounding the post-game reaction. The significance was not simply that one player was left out of a comment. In sports conversations, players often highlight different teammates for different reasons, and a single omission does not automatically explain someone's mindset or intentions. However, given the broader context surrounding the Fever, Clark's role as the team's central figure, and the amount of attention surrounding her performances, the absence became something that many people wanted to examine more closely. The question being raised was not whether Mitchell was required to give a certain answer. The question was why a player who had such a significant impact on the game and the team's success was not part of the discussion at all. Clark's performance, her offensive creation, and her role in Indiana's overall identity have been central parts of the season-long conversation around this team. Because of that, any post-game analysis that discusses the victory while leaving out the franchise's most recognized player naturally becomes a topic of debate. The moment became less about one interview and more about the larger conversation surrounding recognition, credit, and how contributions are acknowledged within a team environment. The words that were said mattered. But in this case, the silence also became part of the story.
Describe that one three-point shot that you put up after you dribbled everywhere, except around to the half court and back and around in the paint and everything else. But it wasn't a play that Coach White designed. But man, you are picking and choosing and looking so good out there on the perimeter.
I think it's just about finding my spots. I'm gonna lie to y'all. I saw BG and I was like, not a good idea.
Rethink.
So let me do it again. Let me rethink. And I just think, I gotta take my spots and find the shots that I really want to take and not let nobody force me into any of them. And so I think this is about me just staying mindful of my runs and staying mindful of my angles.
Go on runs and
people now on their stuff and doing what they need to do, personnel-wise, knowing the defensive schemes. Everything that matters is the details. I think we hold each other accountable and we try to get to the next play. And hopefully you stop teams from making a run.
Hey, talk about a little bit about the contributions of Sophie Cunningham. She was sensational.
I think the idea, though, guys, is just that the more people, the better. I think we all can pour in. This group is special because each person could do something really, really good. And I think that Soph just got her moment. And it's our goal to always make sure when people are hitting, come back to them. And so that's the idea.
Caitlin Clark had just delivered another impactful performance, finishing the game with 25 points and 5 assists. And even those assist numbers do not fully capture the offensive influence she created throughout the night. Several opportunities generated by Clark's passing did not become official assists because the shots created from those situations were not converted. The difference between the box score and the actual offensive impact tells an important part of the story. This was another game where Clark carried a significant portion of Indiana's responsibility. The Fever had now won 3 consecutive games against teams with losing records, and in each of those contests, Clark played a major role in overcoming situations where Indiana had allowed opponents back into the game. Double-digit leads disappeared, execution became inconsistent, and late-game pressure increased. Yet each time, Clark's individual ability became the difference between a difficult loss and a victory. Her scoring, playmaking, and ability to control important possessions repeatedly gave Indiana the margin it needed to survive those situations. That context is what made the post-game discussions stand out. Kelsey Mitchell used her media availability to recognize several teammates and discuss different contributions that helped produce the win. She highlighted Sophie Cunningham, Monique Billings, and other players who played important roles. However, Clark's contribution was not mentioned. The significance of that moment comes from the larger conversation surrounding this team. Clark's impact on Indiana's success has been one of the defining storylines of the season, making her absence from the discussion something many observers immediately noticed. This was not simply about one missing mention. It became part of a broader debate about how credit is distributed, how performances are recognized, and how the contributions of Indiana's most influential player are discussed publicly. Throughout the season, questions about acknowledgement and appreciation around Clark have continued to appear in different forms. Mitchell's post-game comments after the Connecticut game became one of the clearest examples because of the length of the discussion and the number of players she chose to highlight. Now, the focus shifts to Sue Bird. Her comments require a separate examination because they introduced another layer to the conversation. The important point is not only what she said, but also how the same analytical standards are applied when evaluating different players and different contributions within the same game. That contrast is where the next part of the discussion begins.
Stat that exists where when Caitlin shoots better than 40%, they win. And 40% is achievable.
Yeah.
Like that should be like what she averages on the year. So whenever she shoots well, they play well. And I think that just speaks to shot selection, ball movement. She got some easier looks.
Yeah.
Maybe Trista was right on Connecticut's defense and that they She got some easier looks.
Yeah.
Maybe Trista was right on Connecticut's defense and that they give up the three quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I think when you have an efficient play, you can get over those lulls.
Yes.
You can find ways to withstand them.
Yeah.
Sue Bird's comments about Caitlin Clark's performance deserve a closer examination because the issue is not simply whether Clark received praise. At first glance, Bird did acknowledge Clark's 25-point performance. She recognized the efficiency and the impact of the scoring night. However, the way that recognition was framed became the central point of discussion. The explanation focused heavily on the opponent. The argument was that Clark's efficient shooting was helped by Connecticut's defensive approach, a team that has struggled at times to limit perimeter shooting and allowed opportunities from beyond the arc. That perspective may be part of the evaluation, and opponent context always matters when analyzing any player's performance. But the question being raised is whether that same standard is consistently applied when discussing different players. Because Clark's performance was not simply the result of defensive mistakes. It also involved her ability to create separation, read defensive coverages, make difficult decisions, and consistently produce offense within a system that has not always placed her at the center of every possession. Her preparation, skill level, shot-making ability, and control of the game all played a role. This was another example of Clark producing at a high level during a stretch where Indiana repeatedly relied on her ability to make the difference in competitive moments. Now compare that framing with a discussion surrounding Sophie Cunningham's fourth-quarter scoring burst. Cunningham's 11-0 run was rightfully recognized as an important contribution. Her shooting, confidence, and ability to change momentum helped Indiana secure the victory. But the analytical question comes from the contrast. When discussing Cunningham's success, the focus was on her execution, her confidence, and her ability to deliver when the team needed her. When discussing Clark's success, the explanation placed much greater emphasis on the opponent's defensive weaknesses. That difference in framing is what sparked debate. The question is not whether Cunningham deserved credit. She did. The question is whether Clark's accomplishments receive the same level of individual recognition, or whether they are more often explained through outside factors. Elite players benefit from situations around them. Every great performance includes context, the opponent, teammates, coaching decisions, and game circumstances. But elite players also create those situations through their own ability. Clark's recent production has been built on more than just what defenses allow. It has come from her skill, her decision-making, and her ability to consistently impact games in multiple ways. That distinction is at the center of the ongoing conversation surrounding how her performances are analyzed.
I actually talked about veteran presence when I was talking about Olivia Nelson-Ododo, just how she was starting to become that. Sophie is that. And I think we've seen that in her career. We haven't seen it as of late. Obviously, she had the elbow injury, kept her out last game, but that's why you have a player like this on the team. She's somebody who's been to the finals. She understands what it takes in those moments, so can kind of get a little, delusional in a sense, where you just go in, and they did a great job of finding her.
The next question is the one that makes the contrast in analysis impossible to ignore. Did Bird apply the same explanation to Sophie Cunningham's fourth-quarter impact? Did she suggest that Cunningham's scoring burst was mainly the result of Connecticut's defensive mistakes? Did she frame Cunningham's success as something created primarily by the opponent rather than by Cunningham's own execution and ability? That was not the way the performance was discussed. Cunningham's run was presented as a reflection of what she brought to the game. The focus was placed on her confidence, her shot-making, and her ability to deliver when Indiana needed a momentum-changing performance. The credit was connected directly to the player. That difference in framing is what created the larger debate. The issue is not whether opponent context belongs in basketball analysis. It absolutely does. Every performance happens within a specific environment, against a specific defense, and under specific circumstances. The issue is whether that context is being applied equally. If a team's defensive weaknesses are used as a primary explanation for Clark's efficiency, then the same analytical standard should be used consistently for every other player's performance. Because Clark's recent production has not happened in only one favorable matchup. It has happened repeatedly. Against Washington, she delivered a game-winning shot in a pressure situation where execution and decision-making mattered most. Against Chicago, she recorded a historic 32-point, 10-assist double-double alongside Aaliyah Boston's 30-point double-double, creating a performance that entered the record books. Against Connecticut, she once again produced a major offensive impact with 25 points and 5 assists, while creating even more opportunities that were not fully reflected in the official statistics. Those performances cannot simply be explained away by opponent quality. Great players benefit from situations around them, but they also create those situations through their own talent, preparation, and